Oh, this album is so good. Oh, jeez. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Greg. I'm here. You're here. We're all here for the love of music. Now, as you can tell by the little intro there, this album has got me hyped. This album has got me out of breath. This album is amazing. It's one of the best albums I've heard this year. It's definitely a contender for rap, hip-hop album of the year for me. Of course, I'm talking about, judging by the title of the video, Saturation by Brockhampton. Now, I'm guessing that most of you don't even know who Brockhampton is. You've never heard of them. I was in the same boat until a little bit earlier this year. Actually, until I think it was early May this year when the group started dropping singles for this album. I happened across one of them on YouTube. And I checked it out. I really enjoyed it, and so I subscribed to the band's channel. And they released a few more singles leading up to their album release. This album was dropped on June 9th, so about 2 months ago. And I can't count on my hands how many times I've had this album on repeat. It's so good. Now, as I said before, this is a rap hip-hop album, but it's experimental. It's alternative. Brockhampton are unlike any rap or hip-hop that I've heard since I began checking out, these genres. It's something unique. They've created their own style. They've created their own sound. Now, it just depends on the band or the artist, whether I give a lot of background information or whether they're more mainstream, more well-known. But seeing as how Brockhampton is pretty new, almost anyone I talk to has never heard of them, I feel it's necessary to give you a little background, on the group before I get into the album here. So I'm going to do that really quick. Now, the group originally formed in San Marcos, Texas. I think it was late 2015 or very early 2016. Maybe it was like on New Year's or something. I think I remember reading something about that, but I might be wrong. And the group is actually headed by a young rapper and a young producer named Kevin Abstract. His real name is Ian Simpson. He has some solo projects out if you want to check him out. But he actually started the group on an online forum. And I think the forum is called Kanye to the. I'm not really sure. Something related to Kanye West. But anyway, Kevin was basically, from what I understand, on the forum, essentially just recruiting other rappers and other producers and, some band managers. And he essentially created this collective of all these different guys. And after they formed, right after that, they moved to South Central Los Angeles, where they're currently located. And that's where they've started producing their music. And the band actually dropped a mixtape in 2016 that I found after discovering their singles. It's a pretty raw mixtape. It's not, there's not a lot to shout about. There's a few decent tracks, but the band was experimenting. It's more like a demo, I guess. And if you have heard that mixtape and you have not heard Saturation, then holy shit, you're going to be blown away, because if you strictly go in and listen to that first mixtape, you're like, oh, I'm not going to really be expecting much. This isn't that great. But if you listen to Saturation, it's a step above, it's a level above, but this is like 10 steps above, 10 levels above. Saturation is, if you had heard that first mixtape and then heard this, I'm sure you're blown out of the water. Now, Brockhampton has, I think now it's over a dozen members. They have five main MCs, or 5 rappers. Kevin Abstract is the main guy. There's Amir Van. There is Dom McLennan. There is Matt Champion, and there is Merlin Wood. So those 5 are the main vocalists on all the tracks. And here and there, there'll be another vocalist. There's one of the producers. His name is, I think it's Joba, Joba. He has a few appearances or cameos, I guess, on some of the tracks. He does a few of the choruses. There's another gentleman named Bareface. I'm not sure what his real name is. He sings on the closing track on this album called Waste. But the rest of the members in the group are producers, they're, you know, photographers, band managers, web managers, you know, all that kind of stuff. So collectively, there are over a dozen members, so it's a huge group. And allegedly, since they were formed on an online forum, the band calls themselves the internet's first boy band. And when I heard that, I was, you know, when I hear boy band, I instantly think of, you know, 90s groups like NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys and, 98 Degrees and now One Direction. That's like boy band, but I mean, if that's what they want to call themselves, yeah, whatever. They're an amazing group. And right before I get into this album, I'm just going to say this, you know, I'm on camera here, I'm on video, that Brockhampton is going to be the next big thing in hip hop. You know, they're not well known yet. They're not mainstream. I don't know if that's their goal, but they're going to be the next big thing in hip hop. You know, mark my words. All right, let's get into this thing. I'm so excited. I love this album. Let's get into it. Saturation is just under 51 minutes, 17 tracks, and all the tracks are stylized in capital letters, all the track names. If you're a fan of Kendrick Lamar, he just dropped an album earlier this year called Damn. I don't know if it's coincidence, if it was done on purpose, but all of Kendrick's track names are capitalized, or stylized with capital letters. All of Brockhampton's tracks on this album are also done the same way. And it's interesting to note, just because I'm pretty observant, that all the track titles on Saturation are 4 letters long, except the closing track, Waste, which I mentioned a little earlier. And I have a theory now that I only discovered a few days ago because, get this, Brockhampton are actually releasing Saturation 2 sometime this summer. I think it might actually be this month in August. So yeah, that's, I'm pretty excited about that, obviously. But I think that Waste might just kind of be like a segue into that album, at least the 5-letter name, because they've released 2 singles from their new album already, and one of them, titled Gummy, also has 5 letters. So that's my only theory on why Waste has 5 letters when every other track has 4. If you know anything else that I don't, please leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know if I've overlooked something. Now, prior to the release of Saturation on June 9th, the band, as I mentioned earlier, dropped several singles. They actually dropped 5 singles from this album. The first single was called Face. Second single, Heat. Third single was Gold. Fourth single was Star. Fifth single was Boys. But if you get a chance, check these music videos out for these singles. They're awesome. The band actually directs their own videos. They make them. They're kind of crazy. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. The first video I actually saw, the first single I actually saw was the track Star. And like, it's just a crazy track. And I'm going to get into that one in just a second. I was actually having a difficult time on how to, you know, when I talk about an album, I try to do it in such a way where I introduce it and it flows well. Sometimes it's going straight through the track list, you know, 1 through whatever. Sometimes I like to, jump around. But I decided to start with the 3 filler tracks on this album. There's 3 little interludes, I guess you could call them, tracks on this album. They're called Skit 1, Skit 2, and Skit 3. And I guess you could say, well, those have 5 letters. Well, Skit is 4 letters, and then there's a number, so whatever. But anyway, these skits are track 6, track 9, and track 14. And each one of them just has a little bit. It's just spoken word. And if you watch these, the single videos, sorry, digressing a bit, there's a gentleman that introduces each video. His name's Roberto, and he's like, he says his name, and then he says something in Spanish about what the song is about. But Roberto is featured on each of these 3 skits. But each of the 3 skits asks a question, and then Roberto answers it in Spanish. It's kind of weird, but Skit 1 is, where are you going? Skit 2 is, who are you? And Skit 3 is, do you ever feel like you don't belong? And I just discovered this when I was, taking some notes before I did this review, that these 3 questions on these skit tracks are essentially what Brockhampton is about, why they were formed. And at first I just dismiss these skit tracks like whatever, they're just, garbage fillers, but they actually have some substance to the rest of the album and, for the band. So those are on there. If you're listening to this album, don't skip over them, just listen to them. They kind of, and think about what these questions are asking. But I am going to start with the first track, Heat, which is one of the first singles. It's the second single they released. Heat is the most aggressive track on this album. Definitely the most aggressive track. It has some very aggressive lyrics, some violent lyrics. The very first line on this album, the very first line in the track, the first verse is sang by Amir Van. He says, "I got pipe dreams." And then, he continues on after that, but he says, "I got pipe dreams." And to me, that was a great line to open this album with, because Brockhampton is essentially a pipe dream. It was something created on a whim randomly by Kevin Abstract, just recruiting these guys. And look what they've done. They've created one of the best albums of the year, in my opinion. So this pipe dream turned into something huge. And Heat is essentially a song about the band being angry, with the police, with authority, not necessarily police, but they mention the police. The hook on this is actually sang by Amir. He says, "Who done call the cops on my niggas?" It's repetitive. And then there's a very aggressive part in the middle. It's almost like a metal part where one of the more rare singers, MCs, come on. His name is Joba. He says, "Fuck you, I'll break your neck so you can watch your back." And he repeats this. And, this is the album opener. It's like, it just kind of blows you away. It's super aggressive. And to me, this track with its aggressive lyrics kind of alludes or gives almost like a backstory of what kind of environments all these guys came from before they joined Brockhampton. Following Heat is Gold, one of the other singles that I already mentioned, and Kevin Abstract immediately starts this track off with a hook. It's "Keep a gold chain on my neck, fly as a jet, boy better treat me with respect." Yeah, not bad. But the gold chain is a symbol on this track. Gold is the title of the track. And this track is about success and the band's potential and the band wanting success, striving for success. And that's essentially what the lyrics focus on this track. Now, later in this track, one of the main MCs, Don McLennan, he has this line I thought was relevant to this theme. He says, "You better find your thickest of sweaters, 'cause this ice might fuck around and change your whole life, 'cause we're about to take flight." And he says we're about to take flight, and that kind of reverts back to the chorus where he says "fly like a jet," or "fly as a jet," I'm sorry. I just thought it was a good wordplay coming back to that chorus. And speaking of choruses, I just want to say this now before I forget to mention it. Kevin Abstract, I'm pretty sure he writes all the chorus. Kevin Abstract writes all the hooks, which are usually the chorus. And this man is a hook writing god. Like, every single hook on this album is so catchy. And he doesn't even do anything that's super abstract or complex. Most of his hooks are pretty simple. On the fourth track, Boys, one of the singles, he starts the track off again with a hook. It's "Hella boys say, hella boys say, hella boys." And I'm not doing it justice at all, but it's catchy stuff. Each verse on this track is basically more stories from all the boys of Brockhampton prior to joining the group, becoming the group. On the previous track, Star, which is another one of the singles I mentioned, this track doesn't really have a hook or a chorus. Each verse is it's filled with different movie actors and, different famous people. And, they reference these names, and it's actually pretty brilliant. It's kind of silly, but it's brilliant. Check out the lyrics on this. But this track, again, shows the band's desire to be famous, desire to, have success, to be like these people, or to at least see what it's like to live a life of fame. And on Kevin's verse on this track, he actually flaunts his bisexuality. If you didn't know, Kevin Abstract is a bisexual, and it's something that he's struggled with his entire life, and he goes into great detail on this album about it. But on this track, one of his, in his verse, he says, Heath Ledger with some dreads, I just gave my nigger head. I don't fuck with no white boys unless the nigger Shawn Mendes. So like, just that's an example. All these names are being mentioned, but they relate to each of the rappers' story, which I thought was really creative. So check this song out. This was the first one I heard. If you've never heard of Brockhampton, check this out. I think you're gonna be interested. It's gonna be intriguing for you. There's a little short track after Boys called Tupac, and I'm not sure if it's actually dedicated to the rapper Tupac, but it's like a little over a minute long, and it's sang by Amir, and he's talking about his past demons. He says, I got some demons on me. They've been feeding on me. And then Kevin has another hook. It says, trouble keep following me. And he keeps repeating that. So again, it's reverting back to that, the past of these guys, what these guys came from, which is an ongoing, flashbacks, I guess, on this album. Now, the first few tracks on the album are all the singles, minus one that's at the end. But the center of the album, well, first let me say that I've seen a lot of critics just hammering this album, that it's not good, or none of the tracks are good except for the singles. And I can't disagree more. Some of my favorite tracks on this album are, the deep cuts, the ones that aren't singles. And I'm going to get into those really quick here. I have so much I want to say about these, but I'm trying to keep this brief, as brief as I can. This is going to be a long video, I know. The song Fake, which comes right after the first skit track. Again, Kevin with another amazing hook, and it's super simple. It's yippee-yi, yippee-yi, hit me on my cellular phone. It's like yippee-yi, yippee-yi, da-da-da. Like, it's just simple stuff like that, and it's like, how does this guy come up with this stuff? I don't do it justice. Check this track out. Check all these tracks out. But on this track, all the verses by these MCs are actually in auto-tune, which I typically don't like auto-tune at all, but it works for these guys. These guys do it right. And the track title is Fake, and I'm thinking, fake. These aren't their real voices. The auto-tune is essentially making their voices fake. And the main theme on this track is, I guess, or the band trying to say that, the music industry is censoring artists, is censoring bands, is forcing them to not say what they want to say. It's forcing them to use a pseudonym or a moniker, I guess. And it's basically the group just, saying that they're against that. They say on this album a few times, don't say that. Don't say that. And like after each line, they'll say, don't say that. And it's like, that's like the music industry slapping slapping artist's hand, or an artist's hand. Gotta adjust the camera here a sec. Looks like it might have slipped. Maybe not. And on this track, it's one of my favorite verses on the whole album, and it's from Don McLennan. He rhymes these long E sound words in this entire verse. So I'm gonna read the words that he rhymes. He has Master P, calories, factory, gallery, salary, alchemy, battery, mastery, pottery, oddities, broccoli, comedy, commodity and quality. And probably my favorite line on the whole album, or at least one of them, is in this is in this verse. And Dom says, got a squad full of fucking oddities. I got squash, apricots, and broccoli. We turn weird shit to a commodity. I'm on an odyssey for real quality. And essentially, to me, that's what Brockhampton is. They're a squad full of fucking oddities. And then he says, I got squash, apricots, and broccoli. And those three foods are not usually something you eat together. So, oddities. We turn weird shit into a commodity. They have a unique style. This crazy stuff. Their videos are weird. And he says, we're on an odyssey for real quality. And they're looking for success and fame. And I love this line. Like I said, it represents the group. On the next track, following Fake is called Bank. And again, guess what it starts with? Another Kevin hook. Still the only one I do this with. Still the only one I do this with. Hey, that's some shit. Check this track out. You'll see what I'm talking about. And on this track, Kevin and Dom are singing a verse together, and they sing, "I'm addicted to writing shit that make niggas scared of us." And this may represent, the violent content that they often sing about in a lot of these tracks might scare somebody. But I think, the way I took away from it is that these guys are writing stuff that are making other groups, other artists scared. Like, whoa, look what these guys are coming out with. That's fire. We need to step up our game. They're gonna be number one here soon. That's kind of how I took away from it. But that leads to the title of the song. I'm trying to figure out as I'm going through what each of these titles mean. Like bank, they don't really mention a bank in here. The only thing close was the line, I ain't never robbed a nigga. And to me, that's saying that Brockhampton is original. They have not plagiarized. They create their own sound, like I've said before. They're creating their own style. Now the first half of the album is more focused on the backstory of the band. Well, not all of it, but some of their past, their search for fame. The second half of the album, I guess, is more about self-discovery and self-acceptance, that kind of stuff. On the song Trip, starts with another Kevin hook. Yep. It's today I'ma be whoever I wanna be. Today I'ma be whoever I wanna be. It's a boy fantasy. It's a girl fantasy. Check it out. I'm saying it's catchy stuff. It's nothing complex. It almost sounds kind of silly, but it's super catchy. And this track is just basically expressing the band's, or a major theme of self-acceptance on the album. On the track Swim, it's another heavily laden auto-tune track. And on this one, it's focusing again on, the self-acceptance theme. On the hook here with Kevin and Joba, they sing, "Show your new outfit, you love to show out." And it's like, "I love it on you though, I love it on you." And the outfit, might represent clothing, but I think it's a metaphor for how the group has changed since they become Brockhampton, how the individuals in the group, I should say, have changed or have grown since they become Brockhampton. Merlin Wood says, "Shit happened, how it happened, so the past is perfect." And basically what that says to me is that, yeah, everyone has shit that's happened in their past, but that's how you grow. You learn from it. You move on. The song Bump is probably the next most aggressive track, the only other really aggressive track aside from Heat. And it's not really that aggressive. It just has an aggressive sound. It kicks off right away with this heavy bass, just, chugging, bump, bump. Matt Champion sings a lot of this song until the incredibly catchy hook, which it goes from this aggressive bumping, beat, and it just stops, and then Kevin comes in with this incredibly catchy hook. "When this ends, at least I have a reason to live." And then it goes right back into the aggressive part, and then it does that, I think 3 times on this track. But basically what this, what the group is saying here is that they have found their passion. They've created something that's given each other hope, and they now have a reason to live. And it's pretty inspiring that they've done this. They've grown. They are essentially changing. The track Milk, it's the main self-acceptance track in my opinion. A lot of these I've mentioned touch on it. This one is the meat of the theme, and it's about self-acceptance. It's about improving oneself. And all the MCs have a verse on this, and basically they're, again, referring back to what they came from, and not necessarily the difficulty, but changing their lifestyle, coming to California, leaving their homes, transitioning to adulthood. That's a good way to put it. Maturing. That's a good. all these are discussed here. One of the catchiest hooks on the album, in my opinion, is on Milk. And again, it's Kevin with this hook. I gotta be better at being me, being who I am. I gotta be better at everything, being who I am. I think it's completely sincere, and it almost makes you tear up a bit, I guess. Like, you really feel for these guys. And basically, they're just saying that if you be yourself, if you love yourself, you can attain your goals. And specifically for Kevin here, you know, he's always felt out of place where he came from. He just wants a friend, whether he's saying a boyfriend or just, you know, a friend to hang out with. He wants someone that, you know, to make him feel important. And then Matt Champion has a line on here that I also thought was pretty relevant. He says, dropping all I got on this one way, I just want to be somebody someday. And basically what he's saying there is that he and most of the rest of the group dropped what they were doing. They put everything on the line for this group in hopes that it would turn into something that would make them better people, that it would be something that they would love. It would give them something to live for. On the track Face, which was the first single released on this album, the group basically sings about the hardships of love or love loss, and, you know, that kind of stuff. And if you check out the music video, it's basically the entire group destroying a lot of the stuff in their house and a lot of the stuff in their yard. And it seems kind of violent, and it's kind of funny because the track is very mellow and, you know, very laid back. And Joba actually sings the hook on this, and it's "Tell me what you're waiting for, I just want to love you." And he's got a very high voice. It's a very beautiful, beautiful hook. But it's kind of what I took away from it. If you see the video and hear this track, you know, it's the group dealing with loss, or dealing with love loss, or dealing with hardships in love, I guess, waiting for someone to love them. And they're just taking out their anger on material possessions to cope. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Just a quick interruption here, guys. My camera actually died. So I actually had to film this last bit on a different day. That's when I found time to do it. Well, filming it now. So I apologize for any lighting differences or any, you know, background differences. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know what was going on here. Now, we actually skipped over a track a little earlier. The track is called Cash, and it's the main, well, I guess the only political track on the album, the only politically charged track on the album. And there are 4 verses on this track, and each MC has just a really short verse. Normally their verses are much longer, but each of them are a lot shorter, and they each focus on like different political and social issues that are going on today, like racism, homophobia, social economic status, that kind of stuff. And it's one of my favorite tracks on the album because of the content. And all of these issues seem to be, well, all the MCs, I guess, seem to be personally affected by each of the issues that they're rapping about on this track. So it makes it even more, I guess, real for me when I hear it. You know, they talk about their background, you know, specifically for Kevin, the effects of his bisexuality, you know, how he's had to deal with that. Merlin Wood, his little verse specifically talks about how the masses seem to be controlled by the government, or why. I guess he's asking, why is it that, you know, an authoritative figure controls the people. And at the very end of the track, Joba, who has a few appearances on the album, has a little outro where he's saying, "It's me against the world." And this outro just drives home the fact that, you know, all these guys in Brockhampton have at one point or another felt like the world has been out to get them, or that the world's been, you know, against them. It's them against the world. And that's kind of what they're talking about on this track with all the political and social issues. So again, it was just a really relevant track. It kind of opens your eyes to, you know, their perspective on what they've gone through. And just a really quick side note on the song Cash, the chorus, I'm just gonna read it off here for you, it's get money, big band, simple bands, big money, big band, simple bands. And this is obviously talking about, bands around money. Now this is very off topic, but the first time I heard this track, this chorus starts, kicks the track off like a lot of them do. But it sounded exactly like another song or another part of a song that I know. It's the track "A Little God in My Hands" from the band Swans. There's a part in that track on "A Little God in My Hands." It's at, I think, the 4-minute 10-second mark, where there's some background vocals, and I have no idea what the background vocals on the track are saying. I've looked it up. I can't find it. It sounds like it's saying, "Sun God, summon the marzipan, big money, big band, simple bands." They both have like 8 syllables. The vocals sound exactly the same. It was just a really weird, like, it sounded exactly like it. That's what I thought of. So if you get a chance, and if you're interested, check out that track by Swans, "A Little God in My Hands." It's about midway through the track. It sounds just like the intro on Cash. Yeah, I'm a music nerd. But that's saturation for you guys. And I feel like I could have talked a lot longer on this. I know this video is really long, so I do apologize if I've rambled. But I wanted to go into detail on each of these tracks. I wanted to introduce you to this group in hopes that you're going to discover a new group that you like. You're going to discover a new hip-hop, a new experimental group like I did. And like I said, they have a new album that's supposed to drop this summer. I've heard rumors that it might be even at the end of August, so in a couple of weeks. So if that does drop, expect another review, sometime after that. But like I said before, this is one of my favorite albums of the year so far. It's experimental. It's something different. It's unique, and that's the kind of stuff I'm into. That's the kind of stuff I look for. And like, if you're interested at all, if you like what you're hearing here, check this group out. Not just their music, but they have like a whole little series. I think Viceland, if I'm not mistaken, did a series or a special on these guys, and I forget the name of it. I'll have to look it up. But it kind of goes into their background and how they formed and this kind of stuff. And I've watched a few episodes, or a few parts of the episodes, I guess. So if you're interested, check these guys out, because this right here, this is inspirational in my opinion. These guys basically gave up their lives to do something that they've dreamed of doing. And in the process, from what I see, they're trying to, and they're becoming better people because of it. These guys, who are just plucked from all over, are like a quintessential definition of friendship. These guys reinvented friendship. Seeing them in their videos, watching their backstories, and seeing how they've grown and what they're becoming. It's, like I said, it's just pretty inspiring. And I always try to mention or try to figure out what the title of a track means, and then what the title of the album means or represents. And saturation, to me, I mean, if you think about it literally, something that is saturated, it's full, it's about to burst. Like you think of a sponge or a towel that, if they're soaked, or like a cloud, if they're fully saturated, if you touch the sponge, it's going to drip. If you wring out the towel, it's going to drip. If a cloud is saturated, it's going to rain. These guys, they've got, experience from so many different places, their backgrounds. This album is saturated with their ideas, their experience, their backgrounds, what they've gone through. And it's essentially just raining down on listeners. Not to sound cheesy, but that, and I've heard, I don't know if it's true, that these guys have recorded like 40 or 50 tracks that are, allegedly supposed to be Saturation 1, this album, and then Saturation 2, which is coming out. So in that respect, that's saturated, that's a lot of material. But let me know down in the comments what you think, if you've heard this album, if you've checked out any of the tracks. Like I said, if you're brand new to them, if you've never heard of Brockhampton, check out the singles that I mentioned. If you're into hip hop, let me know what you think. Is this your style of hip hop? Is this, to a lot of people, I think it's because it's so different sounding that they don't really like it, or they're not used to it, so it's not as good. But give it a chance. This, like I said, I think Brockhampton are going to be huge. And if they're not, well, they deserve to be, in my opinion. I'm going to end it here, guys. Please like, please comment, please share. Let's get some discussion going. I'd love to see more discussion on my videos. I don't have a lot of subscriptions yet, but hopefully these reviews are being seen, and I'd like to get some more involvement. So please subscribe. Please share on social media. I don't mind. Let's get the word out that there's some great music out there. That's why I'm doing this. For the love of music. All right, I'll see you guys next time.